We now have Harsh Maheshwari, founder Sunrise Community Center, joining us live for a talk on critical thinking, a way of life. Over to you, Harsh.
Thanks, Prerna. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about critical thinking, but before we get into it, I want to introduce myself very briefly. I did the Teach for India Fellowship between 2012 and 2014. During my fellowship, I co-founded an after-school center called the Sunrise Community Center, and we've been running this space for the last 8 years. And over the last couple of years, we've been experimenting with the principles of self-directed learning. Through the center, our vision is to create a world in which youth love to learn. While I'm not working, I love playing with dogs, doing a little bit of origami and marbling. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at the approaches to teach critical thinking, and we're also going to be looking at strategies to foster an approach to critical thinking called the immersive critical thinking approach. So let's get into it. There are three primary approaches to teaching critical thinking. There's something called the standalone approach, there's something called the embedding approach, and there is something called the immersion approach. Let's start by looking a bit closely at the standalone approach. The standalone approach is essentially thinking skills that are taught separately from the subject matter content. Under this approach, critical thinking is assumed to be a skill, and it can be taught and applied universally across subjects. One of the advantages of this approach to critical thinking is we don't penalize youth who do not have the requisite subject matter knowledge to do well in traditional courses. So what do we mean by this? So even if I'm not doing well at school, or I haven't gone to school, this approach, it allows me to still pick up the skills associated with critical thinking, irrespective of my prerequisite knowledge. What are some of the disadvantages of this approach? These skills that we pick up, these generic thinking skills that we pick up, they don't readily transfer. They don't readily transfer or generalize to other parts of the curriculum or out of school performances. So what happens here is that I learn all these wonderful thinking skills, but when it comes to a situation where I need to apply them, I'm unable to transfer what I have learned into those situations. Let's move on to the embedded approach. Now, in the embedded approach, it's slightly different from the standalone approach in the extent that through the subject matter content, we try to introduce the kids or the students to these thinking skills. Now, this approach, it looks to teach thinking skills in the context of their use or application to the specific subject matter. There are two ways to do this. There is something called the front-end strategy, and there's something called the need-to-know strategy. The front-end strategy essentially teaches the skills first and then shows students how those skills are applied to achieve specific subject matter goals. So I'll teach the skills first to the child, and then I'll introduce them to the subject matter, and I'll show them how to apply those skills that I've learned in that particular subject that I'm teaching them. The other approach, which is the need-to-know approach, it believes that thinking skills are best taught on a need-to-know basis. Now, what does that mean? So we'll provide the students with the problem that they need to solve. And once we notice that they're encountering difficulties, we introduce them to this skill. Advocates of this approach argue that teachers can accomplish this goal of embedding critical thinking skills in the regular instruction by simply reworking the material that they already have. This would be hugely beneficial because instead of having to reinvent the curriculum, all we need to do is just revisit our approach to teaching things that are already in our existing curriculum. What could be something that doesn't work well in this situation? if we focus on how we want the kids to think about thinking, then we might be likely to ignore what is that we want the student to think about. So the content takes a backseat, and the focus is then on how do we get the kids to think about thinking and develop these critical thinking skills. So based on the standalone approach and the embedded approach, we can define critical thinking as a set of skills or cognitive steps for reaching the correct decision or assessing the truth or falsity of statements. So here, the important bit to focus on is that these two approaches, they think of critical thinking as a set of skills. Now let's talk about the immersion approach. The immersion approach is very different from the two approaches that we just talked about, which are the standalone approach and the embedded approach to critical thinking. This approach believes that critical thinking is an attitude. Under this approach, critical thinking is seen as a disposition rather than a set of skills. People who believe in this approach think that thinking is something which is inherent to humans. And students, they fail to think critically in our courses, not so much from a lack of ability, as much as from a lack of will. This approach believes that thinking is similar to the concept of flow, which is described as the peak performance frame of mind enjoyed by being absorbed in a particular task. Under this approach, ideas are the central factor in promoting thought. Now, what do we mean by this? So for us to get a sense of what this means, we need to define what an idea is. An idea is a thought which can be stated clearly and can, in principle, be tested empirically. Now, this is different from a fact or a theme. A fact is very specific, and a theme is something which is very vague, which should be difficult to measure empirically. Now that we know what an idea is, let's talk about how it is a central factor in promoting this immersion approach to critical thinking. Ideas act as our lenses, directing our attention towards important aspects of the environment, allowing us to locate and extract information that is often overlooked. Ideas, simply put, educate our attention, that we can access the rich information present in our environment. Ideas build on a student's innate curiosity around the world around them. So to summarize, ideas help us focus our thinking, and it helps us focus our attention on things in our environment which contain rich information. In our classrooms, students often learn about ideas, but they seldom are shown how to use the idea to describe and explain objects and events in the environment. Most classes, they teach kids about equilibrium in physics or about evolution in biology. And we're asked the students to write in great detail what each of those concepts mean. But very seldom will we actually talk about how do those concepts of equilibrium in physics and evolution in biology apply to the real world and apply to the world around them. Students are often requested to provide a great detail of specific information about some global object or event. But under this immersion approach, they limit the number of big ideas to explain a particular phenomenon. So the difference is that instead of asking them to recall information, we're actually asking them to use the information and the big ideas that they've learned in the class to explain a particular phenomenon. Now, what are the differences between these two approaches? The embedded approach and the standalone approach are on one side of the aisle, and the immersive approach is on the other side of the aisle. The embedded and standalone approach, it essentially believes that critical thinking is a skill which can be taught. Immersive approach believes that critical thinking is an attitude. It is something which can be switched on or off depending on the student's will. The embedded approach and the standalone approach, it focuses on how to teach thinking skills, but the immersive approach actually focuses on the content, on the big ideas of the subject, and lets thinking be an implicit part of this learning. Under the embedded approach and the standalone approach, meaning emerges as students work the knowledge. Now, this is related to information processing. Under this embedded approach, there is a belief that until we get information, only then are we able to process that information to make meaning of the world around us. But the immersive approach follows a slightly different point of view, different thought process. They believe that individuals are constantly perceiving the world around them, and new ideas that are being presented to them, it allows them to build upon their existing knowledge of the world around them, and it also gives them access to new information from the environment around them. Wait, so let me say it again. So under the immersive approach, the belief is that perception plays a key role in how we receive information. So when we receive information, so under the immersion approach, when we receive information, we're actively drawing this information and using it to make sense of the world around us. But this does not mean that we don't already have knowledge that we've acquired through all of our previous experiences. But in the embedded approach, they specifically assume that meaning is only made once there is knowledge. If there is no active process of making meaning of this knowledge, the knowledge will lie dormant. To know more about this, the differences between these two schools of thought, I would recommend reading the traditional information processing theory or looking up Nussert's model of cognition. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about what are some of the strategies that we can use to foster immersive critical thinking. There are three things that we can essentially do. One is that we can provide something to think about and use ideas as the units of the class. Two is we can provide study techniques that foster thought. And three, most importantly, hold discussion meetings at which students really discuss. I'll talk a little bit more about these three things in detail. Now, how do we go about providing our students with something to think about? There are three things that we can do. One is that our teaching must focus on ideas. Two, the instructor must be excited about the idea that they are bringing into the classroom. If for some reason the instructor is unable to get excited about the idea, then I would recommend that they spend more time reading about this particular concept that they're going to be bringing into the class until the point they're able to find something that excites or interests them about that particular topic that they're teaching. And three, the idea that is being brought into the classroom should be relevant to that subject of study. So to summarize, focus on the idea. The classes must focus on the idea. The idea should be exciting with the instructor, and the idea should be of importance to that subject of study. Now, there are 4 ways in which study techniques can help foster this, foster thought under the immersive approach. There's something called question inferring, question maps, hierarchical summaries, and students write out their own questions. So we're going to look at each of these 4 things in more depth. Under question inferring, we infer and write out the questions that the courses, reading, and lectures are trying to answer. So in this situation, whatever reading material we give our students, we'd encourage them to, when they're reading the material, try to identify what is the question that that given material is trying to answer. And similarly for our classes or lectures, we want to encourage the students to constantly receive the information and ask themselves that what is the question that this information that I'm receiving is trying to answer. And then there's something called a question map. So on the next slide, there is an example of what a question map is. Now on it's a 2-axis question map. And on this question map, It's a two-dimensional grid that lists recurring questions on one axis and the items to which they are compared on the other axis. So for example, here there are 5 personality theories, and for each of these personality theories, these are the recurring questions that are being asked. That what human motives are emphasized, what mental structures are posited, and so on and so forth. What this allows us to do is look to see that for recurring questions across different theories or models, what are the differences in responses? Then we have something called a hierarchical summary. What this does is it takes a big idea, it breaks it down into smaller ideas, and then it breaks it down into evidences to support those smaller ideas, which then lead up to the bigger idea. And lastly, while the students are studying or they're sitting in class, we're looking for students to write their own questions, which have been stimulated by the readings or by the classes, but have not been answered by it. So this gets kids to think deeply about the matter and bring in new perspectives to the subjects and topics that they're learning. And lastly, discussion meetings. A large part of developing thinking or critical thinking is discussion and dialogue, because only when there is dialogue is there a reason to think. The structure of these meetings should be such that you want to encourage the kids to share their point of view, and I believe that would be easier done if there wasn't an adult facilitating the session. So if you can either get a senior student to do it, or if you can get a student that has mastered the content to an extent to facilitate these meetings, you'll see that the responses that you get from the students will be pretty amazing. So this is also another way to develop thinking under this immersion model. I think I'm done. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me on this email address. Because over the last 15-20 minutes, I've essentially just been able to touch the tip of the iceberg in terms of the immersion approach to critical thinking. And this is not to say that one approach is better than the other two. This is to identify and show you that these are the 3 approaches that are currently being used to teach critical thinking in the world today. And you can look to adapt each approach to your context. But this is not to say that one approach is better than the other approach. And lastly, if you could put this up in the chat box, is what do you think is the relevance of critical thinking in today's world?
Thank you so much, Harsh, for this insightful session. We do have a few questions from our participants. I've pasted them here as well. Would you like to take them up? Our first question is from Rajni. How is critical thinking helps in this pandemic situation?
Critical thinking is a way of receiving information and making sense of the world around us. So especially in this pandemic situation, since we're going through such unprecedented times, it is even more important to take all this information that we're receiving about the situation to come to a rational understanding of what's happening, why is it happening, and how can we stay safe in these times.
Thank you so much, Harsh. We have another question from Satya Narayana. How can we select any particular approach? Is there any specific way? Also, how can we make kids open up if they have mistakes in thinking?
I think mistakes are an important part of learning. There is evidence to show that there are 2 times when children are most open to learning. One is when they make the mistake, and 2 is how do they respond after they have made the mistake. So the assessments and the testing and the explicit and implicit messaging, they have to be aligned. So on one hand, we can't say that, oh, we want to know your views and we want to know what you think. But on the other hand, when the tests come around, we're basically saying that you need to regurgitate all of this information and provide it to me so that I can grade your assessment. So to answer your question more specifically, I think to get kids to open up, the explicit and the implicit messaging need to be aligned. And and how do you select a particular approach? I think you can select a particular approach based on the requirement of your class and what is the lesson that you're looking to teach. I say that empirically try out all three approaches to see that which approach is working best for your kids depending on their developmental level.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for joining us live and addressing these questions.
Sure. And if someone has asked for an example, I'd say, can you please send me an email and I'll get back to you with very specific examples of immersive thinking and embedded thinking for the same content.
We will shortly be also pasting Harsh's email ID on the comment section. Once again, thank you so much, Harsh, for joining us at Inspired and taking this insightful session.
Thanks.
Thank you and stay safe.
Thanks.